Hello and welcome to Max Life for a quad repair video. Today we will be replacing the ESC on the XJB 143 from HGLRC. And you say to me, well, that doesn't look like that mouthful of a quad. And that's because this is the original body of the XJB. And it's over there with its friends to tell another story later. So the fault I've got with this quad is intermittent. And it will take off, it will fly. Sometimes it'll sit on the ground before it takes off without twitching. Other times it'll spin up that front left and hop over onto its top. Now before I try to replicate this fault, I'm going to want to take off the props. Please don't test your quad with the props on. These motors can spin extremely fast and will cut skin if you get in the way. Take proper precautions and stay safe out there. You might have noticed the extra fat stumpy antenna at the front of the quad. This is the Crossfire micro race antenna. I have it here, backed on a quick tie and wrapped in glue impregnated heat shrink. When I saw this antenna, I had to give it a go. And so far, no problems. No fail safes out to a couple of 100 meters, maybe a bit more, and much tougher than I found other Crossfire antenna setups to be. I would highly recommend that everyone out there give this a go if you're running Crossfire on smaller quads. It allows for a nice, tight little package and will keep your antenna going for some time, it seems. Okay, so we'll move these to the side. Turn on the transmitter, it'll start complaining. Just do that and refire it up. Now, for all it seem like this might seem absolutely normal right when I start it up now, it doesn't always. It's an intermittent fault that I've got, and it doesn't always occur. Okay. The thing is, I don't trust it. I've lost my trust in it. I've seen it sitting on the ground, spinning up this motor here, and twitching. I'm getting completely normal behavior now. What was that? There's a slight twitch when I armed it and released and allowed the throttle up. It's so true, isn't it? It's always when you want to show someone, it never works. Well, one cup of tea later. Hello, I'm back. So I've decided I'm going to test this quad out, and I'm going to try to show you how to test a quad you don't trust, but I'm going to have to reset things up to do it, so I will catch you then. Okay, so testing a quad that's got props on. What have I got here? I have a block, as you can see, and strapped to it is the quad. I've set it up like I would for flying. Well, sort of like I would for flying. So everything's out of the way. You can pick it up by the quad. It's not going to go anywhere. If the quad starts pulling, I can safely grab here. I can pull out the cable. Come back here, pull out the cable. And I'm going to try to replicate that. I attempted 6 times. Well, there's 6 5 other recordings, about 4 or 5 minutes long each, of me trying to do this. I couldn't replicate the fault on camera, and I'm sorry about that. The only time I did replicate it, the camera wasn't recording. So, yes, there we go, the issue. Now, I'm taking these props off again. I just can't stress enough how important it is to take precautions, even with a 3-inch quad like this, as to what's going to happen if it's got props on and it's not strapped down and it's got a problem. Now, I have only ever had what I would call, in this case, is it a closed fail? I think it's a closed fail would be more electrically apt, so that the circuit is closed and therefore running. Correct me if I'm wrong, please. I've only had that on this particular one instance with an ESC. Never had it with anything else. The short of the matter here is that this one was particularly dangerous, as the motor would spin up, making it hard to get to the quad and take the battery plug out. I've been flying for 3 years and I've got 10 quads. I've had a number of failures, but I've never had a closed fault for an ECS. They've always been open, which meant I could pick up the quad. What's more is that the intermittent nature of this fault was deceptive. It was water on the ESC, but I believed I had dried it off. I put the quad in a dry, well-ventilated area for a while, and I thought the offending moisture had evaporated. So I plug in, try to go for a flight, so I plug in, and she seemed fine. Until, bam! Front right pulses at high throttle for half a second. It almost took the quad out of my hand. Then stop. Then go, at random. I only just held on, and if I hadn't had someone on hand to help me unplug, I would have had to use my shoe to hold it down on the ground. It really goes to show that sometimes, even though this is an extremely safe hobby, we do still have to be careful. Like when employing any electronics or any, torque generating apparatus anywhere. Don't put your fingers in the spinny bits. Well, that is if you want to keep them. I got the replacement kit ESC, and it came with this little puppy. That's the waterproofed one we will be doing later. You might ask, with a nice little stack of long screws, long 2mm and standoffs. You might ask why I got this pack. It was because it was, I think this by itself was $50 or $60. And with the flight controller it was 70 or 75 or something like that, or maybe 80. But it was a no-brainer in terms of getting an extra flight controller for the few bucks. It's an omnibus flight controller, so you can use that for iNav, or that means a quad, or a plane, or a boat, or a rover soon with iNav. There's a lot of work going on with that. Time to conformal coat the ESC. I've already done one coat. Still learning to use my setup here. It's not much of a setup. It's a tripod quick clamp to some stuff. So, it could be better. I'm still learning to use the setup. I'm still learning to use this camera. And some of the stuff was out of focus because the autofocus had decided to focus on this and not on this. So now I've set the manual focus, and you can see that should be right in range. Make sure to keep this nice and low for you. And so conformal coating, great stuff. And how do you use it? Simple. Like this. You have to be very careful of anything, unlike circuit board lacquer, which seems to be a reasonably forgiving with most contacting points. reasonably forgiving, provided you don't get it in an SD card slot. That'll get you. It is fixable. This stuff is annoying, and if you get it onto these pins, you're going to be aggravated after having it cleaned it off. Been there, done that. Now, in the interest of keeping this video to a reasonable length, I'll fast forward through the rest of this footage and explain to you the few key points to remember when using conformal coding. Be very careful not to travel over sensitive areas with a drip of conformal coating on your brush. It will ruin your day if it falls off. And let the surface tension work for you. Don't try to force the liquid around. It will stick its way along if you just encourage it a little. Alright, lovely. Lots of juicy goodness. Or as a certain Canadian might say, chooch on that. Shout out to AVE. Right now, so we got to let that dry, and we could solder up these on. Could solder this on. This one I want to wait and do a little later. These might be a bit difficult to solder with the TS80. I've got my other iron over there. If they do turn out to be difficult, I'll just whip them on with the other iron. And we could tin all these points on top of the board. We're going to let that dry for now, and then we'll come back and get it done. One thing about conformal coating I should mention is it fluoresces, which is just cool, right? You can write secret messages to your loved ones in it. Whoa. Anyway, it fluoresces, and you can get right in and make sure it's in all the nooks and crannies, and come around from all sides. Ooh, look, you see I missed a little bit right there. Come around from all sides, make sure you get a good look in there. The shadow may look like you missed a bit, but it probably might just be a shadow. It'll show you nice and clear if you've covered everything. Excuse my head. That's that side. Whoops. I did it. And a bit there to do. Just a bit down there also. Oh gosh. Okay. Looks pretty good, that. I've heard people say that waterproofing isn't just a, gump it on and hope for best. You've got to be quite pedantic about it. I think this is a good proof of case, because this ESC, the original one, was given the same treatment, and it started developing this fault when it crashed into some dewy grass, which is exactly why I do it, because you want to go for a fly in the morning, there's going to be dew on the grass. So I had a bit of a brainwave, which means I'm going to have to undo some of the work I've done here, especially on this little plug. But I want to attach this 1000 microfarad capacitor supplied in the pack to the plug. It's going to allow me for a better packaging situation later on when I rebuild this quad, and will make it a lot easier for me to attach this little assembly to the ESC. While we're watching that, I'll just qualify what I said before about the old ESC getting the same treatment. It was given the same treatment, but I stuffed up and I got some conformal coating on one of those pins, and I wasn't able to get a reading off it. The FC wasn't able to read it. So I had to spend quite a bit of time putting circuit board cleaning solvent and on it and using a toothbrush to clean it off, and eventually I managed to get it good. That circuit board cleaning solvent probably damaged the conformal coating in other areas that weren't intended, and which probably led to the break in the seal that allowed the water in when I crashed in the dew and killed the ESC. So it goes to show that even after trying to redo it, reconformal coat it as well, it just goes to show that you need to be quite careful when it comes to these high-powered little boards and water ingression into them. Now what I'm doing here is going to make it quite difficult just to do a normal heat shrink job onto the wires and on the plug, because there's going to be the capacitor wires leading back from it. So I'm going to do something a little bit different, but not too uncommon to a lot of you out there who have done this kind of thing before. While we're waiting for this section to finish, I just want to give a quick shout out to JetX, to Bruce Simpson for all he's doing for the hobby, and to everyone else out there trying to keep us guys free. Thank you for what you do. Right, here we are. We finished the plug assembly, and the capacitor is now soldered to the plug with the wires, and it's got lovely liquid electrical tape all over it. So what I'm going to do now is shrink this heat shrink on at the front and put some hot glue in the rear. Just need a ancient lighter that works. There we go. Just pulse your lighter if that's what you're using. Don't need to give it too much. And the wire for the glue gun is on its hook. And before hitting it with the glue gun, yeah, you noticed I bent my tip. I'd recommend getting yourself a piece of scrap, something just to wipe the glue off that's not your fingers. Use your fingers, of course, but you have to know what you're doing with hot glue and using your fingers, because you can get very burned, and I don't recommend it. Using your fingers or getting very burned in any circumstance. Squeeze it in good and proper. Alright, I'm going to use my fingers on this one. I'm going to try to keep some heat in it, and I'm going to try to pass this camel through the eye of the needle, and use it to clean off my excess. Beautiful. Okay, so there we have, ready to get tinned up, and that's what we're going to do. Oh, whoops. Pardon. Make sure that's in focus for you while it heats up. It's cooler this morning. A little bit longer. I'll just quickly fast forward this bit for you. When you're doing this, you want to let the flux do the work for you. Flux allows the solder to run at a cooler temperature. And when you finish, it should be a nice shiny blob. You shouldn't have any solder spikes. If you do encounter any problems during this process, a good first port of call is to add some more fluxy goodness. As I'm getting ready to do the battery terminals here, you can see that the sponge in the helping hands there is completely dry and hasn't been used in a long time. It doesn't even really fill the whole thing. I use the black little bin with copper in it you saw before to clean my tips. I'd recommend this over a wet sponge as it puts less thermal stress on your tool. Look at that. See that difference? Pointy, not enough flux. Maybe there should be a song about that. If your solder's pointy, there's not enough flux. You need to go back or it's gonna stuff ups. Alright, anyway, yeah, that's not a great song, right? So that's tinning up the ESC. And I've tinned the bottom for the contacts for the battery, pads for the battery, and the top of the pads for the ESC to motor connection. So here we are, back at the partially disassembled quad. And I found and then lost. I found the screw that was missing from it in the lounge. Weirdest thing. Isn't that? Not where I expected to find it, but it's probably because it's not long enough and I'm going to have to replace all those short screws. So here we are with this particular board, FC and ESC. You just prise them apart like that very gently and they should come apart. The contacts there, little bridge that they make in the middle. It's a nice idea. And it makes it a little hard to use with any other boards, but any other FCs or whatever. Or the other way around actually, especially. Because soldering that up might not be too hard. But soldering this up on these little sides, I close in there for you. On these little sides, just here, 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 here. That'll be a pain in the ass. Derriere, excuse me. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to stick on the battery wires, and you see how I'm planning for them to go in here. There is literally just enough to make it work. So let's put those on, and then we'll strip these off and replace them onto this as we go. And I may end up doubling that back to avoid having the aluminum, I presume it's aluminum foil, contacting these points here. Just double it back and quick tie it. Should work out pretty well actually. Give you a nice zoomed in view. Clean your tip. Sorry about my awkward hands in the way. It's just one of those things. That's held there for the moment. Let's flux it up. See, but that wasn't. It was not soldered on. But that is. Alright. Good and proper. Now, just there's the chickadee down. Any fire in you? Nope. Rush. Any fire in you? Yes. Fire that little bit of extra insulation. Here I am just checking the arrangement as it will be in the quad. Okay, alright. I'll just put that straight on. Like this. Excuse my hands. More flux. Don't forget to flux it up.
prep my tip.
So I ended up having a few difficulties, we'll say. And by the end of it, I reasoned that my tip on the TS80 had probably had all its hours and needed to be changed, so I changed it. And now we'll see how well that worked.
Okay, I'm back with a new tip. That wasn't going well.
And so I attempted again, but the helping hands got in the way. I had to tighten them up. And eventually I proceeded to succeed to get the lead on there, but I unfortunately lost the footage, so we will have to skip to the next bit. So after going back and realizing that I'd lost some of the footage, I had to unsolder a couple of points. And anyway, here I am tinning up the contacts for the with some fresh solder for the leads, and attaching the motor leads in just the order they come out of the motor. And I will reverse motors later on if I need to. To do this, I will use BL Heli Suite. It's a good idea to plug in a new ESC into BL Heli Suite and check out your firmware and settings and make sure you're happy with them. This software is also used to reflash your hardware.
Okay, let's have a little. They look good. I mean, they don't look amazing, especially that one. They look good.
And rinse and repeat on the other side. Once again, just retinning to make sure I got nice fresh solder with lots of flux there. And then I'm going to come through, make sure my lead ends are nicely tipped as well, and just attach them in a way that allows me to get to it, which is not how I ended up doing the battery lead. That made it more difficult. Always solder, plan to solder your points up in a way that makes it easy to access the next one.
Cheeky cleanup. Okay, everything's soldered on. So now I just have to do a bit more reassembly, and I'll do that off camera because I'm going to replace all the screws and there's no point wasting your time. But before I do the full reassembly, I will just do a quick check by putting it back together somewhat, mostly, without not so much the frame but the stack, yeah. So I'm going to quickly do that now. So now, just have to coerce our wiring into place, and yes, some might say, well, why did you leave so much? But I did. Now I want to reattach this to this, connect the stack up, and then plug it into the computer and make sure plug in a smoke stopper first and see what happens. Test it out. And then plug it in the computer if I need to later on. And see what the that'll help. It's always a good start. Don't force these things, just find the fit. They're designed to go together. If it's not going together easily, it's because you are doing something incorrect. There we go. Okay, so that's the stack back together. All the electronics are there, and as you can see, it's going to go. Whoop, that'll go in there. Those get fastened onto that tray, and this will go up like this. Unless I can do something tricky with it, but for now, that's just going to go like that. It doesn't matter if the capacitor gets bashed. It's more. I don't want to short out the board by putting the capacitor in there. It's a massive capacitor. But I guess, you know, anyway, it's not going to blow up, hopefully. I will now get the smoke stopper out. This is a smoke stopper. A light bulb acts as a resistor. It's a very, very simple little circuit. It'll save you if you're stuffed up. And the remote's here. I've got it on. Let's plug in. Okay, they've initialized. They're spinning. Spinning the wrong way. Right way. Wrong way. Whoops. Right way. Okay, so I've got to go on BL Heli and flick them round, and I'm on check the ESCs are up to date when I do that. For now, I'm going to reassemble it with longer screws and a different type of screws. Same dimension of screws, but different type. The old flat head instead of the dome head ones, and they were too short. And then I will go on a BL Heli flight, and I will reverse these two motors. And then after that, I will take it for a test flight at some time, and I will include the test flight in the video. I'm actually going to put this in here and tie it all down because there's plenty of clearance between there. A couple of mil and a couple of mils, all I need. Right, cool. Off to the computer.
So I decided to include the BL Heli reflash and motor direction change because I might as well have it in here and save you going somewhere else to look for it. After you've downloaded and installed BL Heli, plug in your quad and check that your comms thing menu changes at the top there in the top right. It should change from manual selection. Click on connect. This will take a moment to load. And when it does, click reset up. Once that's loaded, you can see your ESC information here. We've got FH40 and version 16.6 on the firmware. To upgrade your firmware, click Flash All. And then select the version and see if there's a new version first. I chose 16.7. There was 16.71 beta available, but I decided to play it safe. And once you've hit flash, it'll go through and flash each ESC one by one, and you can see the progress bar for each as it goes. In the interest of saving time, I'll fast forward till it's done. I noticed that the temperature protection here is set at 140, so I dropped that down to 110 just for a bit of extra safety for the electronics. And then to reverse the motors, you just want to select the motor direction you want in the motor direction tab on the right. And in this case, I wanted 1 and 4 to be reversed. If you're unsure of which motors are which on your quad, you can find it either by Googling or look in Betaflight, as I've cut this little bit of the screen in there in the configuration tab, and you should be able to find it. Now I'm just going to swap over 1 and 4 and disconnect, and now I'm going to go and test fly. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you found this video useful. If you did, please hit the like button so I know, and I'll put more effort into making more of these for you. Have a great day out there, and go out there and fly something.